So Ubisoft have gone and done it. They went and made another Far Cry. Just unveiled last week. Far Cry 5. I guess maybe tentatively titled with barely anything confirmed. I've got some feelings about Far Cry. If you follow me on Twitter, you know that I'm a little sore at Ubisoft. That's kind of gone away over the years, but as a matter of fact, Ubisoft has had quite a couple of good years, I think, as far as their offering goes. Division killed it. Not a game for me. I tried it. The bullet spongy people just wasn't for me, but I don't think I could be critical of that in that it makes it a bad game. Not really. Siege is great. Ghost Recon is apparently doing very well too. Apparently sold more than what Zelda did when it launched that week. But Far Cry 5 has got some not a whole lot of details, but some rumors, and you might want to add some salt into your diet for this one. But I'm going to read out on Reddit, somebody who claims to have been part of a focus group about a year ago for Far Cry 5, leaked some details. I have Crystal Red Punks with me and Rubbin' Apples on the show. Welcome to those two. And let's talk Far Cry.
We gotta talk about Far Cry 5, Reddit rumors, legacy.
Yes, I love this.
Rumor bullshit.
Now, if this rumor is true,
I love you.
I'm gonna be pretty high. I'm gonna be pretty high on this. So
I'm pretty high.
You are most certainly legit high. I am hypothetical, hyped high. Now, if you know who I am and you know what my position is on Far Cry and Ubisoft, you know that I should not be any kind of hyped for this because I've been hurt before. But I'm going to read this. It says what they posted in their findings from this focus group was that the setting is definitely in Montana. This is definitely where rumors are lining up coming from everywhere. There was a rumor that suggested that the game was going to be a spaghetti western, which automatically deflates my hype, any that I might have had for any Far Cry game ever. But it's quoted as, the idea of doing it in Montana was the predominant idea. Like many of you, we were kind of led to believe at first that it would be a Wild West motif, just to see what we thought of that idea, but that changed when they started to show us character profiles and other collateral. The general thrust of this game is that it will take place in present day and feature the protagonist taking on a Jim Jones or David Koresh-like religious cult in a small town in Montana that's been populated by essentially doomsday preppers. My interest is going up, but that's not all. Bent on furthering their cause, so modern-day weaponry, modern-day vehicles, plus a hilly, mountainous backdrop. Honestly, it sounded at the time like they were using that to their advantage, given that when you think of Far Cry, you think of mountains and hills and the kind of backdrop Montana has in spades. And keeping it going as far as the tone that Far Cry 5 could offer. It's heavily religious. And it's sort of the evil angle of that. A person, presumably the protagonist, walking through a town that was completely empty, only to walk into a church to discover the congregation is made up of everyone in town, staring at and in rapt attention at a shirtless lunatic leader brandishing an assault rifle in one hand and a Bible in the other. It's America. And it's America in 2017. It makes sense. It actually hits a nerve in a way. And actually, they talk about that. Even at the time, I wondered how they were going to handle the presentation of religious zealotry to the type of middle America that purchases games for their kids. Jesus Christ. If they proceed on the path that I saw, they're not even trying to pretend. They're steering the vehicle into the curve, which means they give zero fucks on how they're handling the approach to this. They're going to rob, they're going to offend some people, which I think is great. If you're just going to be something, be it 100% and stop pussyfooting around other people's feelings. Lastly, it says no word on multiplayer during the session. They were only interested in showing us stuff from the campaign, and even then, just a few key elements. And they added a nice little comical note at the end. When it came time for open feedback, you may be happy to know that I railed them for a bit for reusing the map from Far Cry 4 for Far Cry Primal, which felt like lazy bullshit to me. Which is true. They did that. They reused the entire map asset for Far Cry 4 in Far Cry Primal. Now they went in, they changed some of the height maps, and they re-added trees and assets and things like that, so it can look holistically different. But lazily, they used the same stuff and just changed the height maps.
People, this is not.
I never knew that. That's pretty bad.
Yeah,
you didn't know that? Oh man, it was everywhere.
Yeah, look it up. It's pretty bad. Now, I mean, there were people that they went and they tested screenshot for screenshot, and it looks different. I give it that, but it's just come on.
Look, Legacy, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about this Far Cry thing. Do you have more that you want to freak out about? Because if you do, I will hold all my thoughts until you're done.
I do. And a lot of people that follow me on Twitter, they know that in the last couple of years, I've had multiple tantrums about Far Cry. And this all came back. Tantrums. Tantrum is the actual word, tantrum. And here's what happened. See, I kind of enjoy the Far Cry single-player games. Far Cry 3 was great until they killed Vaas halfway through it and just completely threw away whatever potential that they would have had with that, that they did have with that, because it had a lot of interesting characters. It had a great setting. Voss was great. Dr. Earnhardt was great. I loved that. I just loved the whole feel of it. Jason Brody, the no man's every man's protagonist. I kind of have his haircut right now, as a matter of fact. I just noticed that.
Oh god.
But Ubisoft for Far Cry in general, at least before a couple of years ago, they are the epitome. They literally are what it is to squander potential. At least they have been. And Far Cry 3's campaign was an example of that. They marketed this game in its single player campaign based on who everybody thought was a popular antagonist in Vaas Montenegro. And again, check the description for below. Rum and Apples has a wonderful RumEtorial on Voss and how great of an actor and great of a character he was, and that he just completely got squandered. Fast forward a year or two, and here comes Far Cry 4. Now, some history, and I'm going to just give you some information on why I am so pissed off at Ubisoft for how they've handled this franchise. I am actually an avid map maker. Now, those games typically come with a pretty feature set map editor for making multiplayer maps. Now, Crystal Red Punks and I have shared quite a bit of time playing these maps together, especially for the old Far Cry Instincts Predator of old. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh my god.
You know what I'm talking about.
Inside.
You can hear the heartbeat, can't you, of the Predator creeping up on you? Which is something that I know Crystal Red Punks would buy the shit out of this game again if it came with a Predator mode. No questions asked.
I'd buy more copies of that game than I bought Switches.
It's just probably not coming out on Nintendo Switch, so that probably worked out in your favor. But it has a fantastic map editor, and I am of the creative type. I like to build maps. I like to spend a week or two building just one map just so I can share it with the community. It's bonkers. It's stupid, but I enjoy doing it. I like to sit back with just a soda and just make maps. And then, of course, you can share these maps with the community. Now, Far Cry 2, be it as you either like Far Cry 2 or you don't. But Far Cry 2, at the time, was considered to be the game that did it the best when it came to making functional maps for multiplayer and then sharing them or hosting them. People could rate your maps. You could get real-time feedback on them. And it was not uncommon to just spend an entire day sharing a map and hosting a map that you created, spent a week on, and then everybody else's, I don't know, one map I made must have got like, I don't know, 1,500 downloads, I think it was, and it had like a 4-star rating. I think it was, no, I think it was just that one Main Street map that I did. It was just random. I spent about 3 days making it, and I came back like a year later and looked at it, and it's like, whoa, wow, all right, that picked up, nice. So Far Cry 4, Far Cry 3's map editor just was underwhelming. It took out vehicles, so you could not have vehicles in the multiplayer. it had a weird team shout thing, and that was the excuse they used to not have vehicles in it was, well, it just takes away from team play. Tell every Halo player or Battlefield player that. That makes no sense at all to me, but whatever. And then, of course, the worst part about Far Cry 3 was that it hindered map sharing completely. Like, if you spent hours or even days making a map and then tried to share it, it used a Call of Duty type playlist system where your map would just randomly come up in a rotation if it wanted it to. You could not share it. People could go and just download it if they want to, but only for like custom games, which is, hey, you and your buddy want to play this map randomly? Sure. Far Cry 4, now a year or two later, is unveiled, and this is after all of the Far Cry players and map editors and sharers and people had websites and communities built around these games for the specific purpose of creating and sharing maps. Big communities like FarCryMaps.net and places like that. Sites that are largely dead now because of Ubisoft's actions. So now, here comes Far Cry 4. Now, Far Cry 4, during its unveiling, I think it was E3, E3 one year, the community begged them for information. It's like, okay, hey, we gave you feedback on how crappy Far Cry was, or Far Cry 3 was. What did you do in Far Cry 4 to make it better? And they were always met with this sort of, on their, like, the UB forums and things like that. Oh, we can't talk about it now, but it's coming. Alex Hutchinson, who was the creative director of the game at the time, had said, yeah, vehicles are coming back to multiplayer. Woo! And we made a big old hoo-ha about that. I mean, it was ridiculous in hindsight. Now, we are just weeks away from the game. Still no information about the multiplayer. Still no information about Far Cry 4's map editor and the relationship of the two. Meanwhile, just before this, Ubisoft flew 3 members of the community out. I'll picture them here. Flew 3 members of the Far Cry community out to Ubisoft Montreal to look at the Far Cry 4 map editor. Did not tell them that you could not make multiplayer maps. And then they gagged them with an NDA and said, this is the date that you can release your videos about the Far Cry 4 map editor, which apparently was just weeks before launch. And then apparently they said, we're going to need to move this back because they knew the reception was going to be bad. It took somebody getting a leak of the game earlier and streaming it from PS4 for us to confirm that, yes, there was a map editor. Yes, it's cool. But you can only make single-player maps in it. They did not officially confirm this until launch day. And their forums were pissed. It was a train wreck. And I never ended up buying the game. I think I bought it like in January of this year, like what was it, 2 years later, on a Steam sale. And actually, I kind of bought it in celebration after Alex Hutchinson left the company and went and started his own developer because, when I found out the bad information about Far Cry 4, I took him to task on Twitter and he blocked me. His response to me was, we didn't have time or the budget. It was in every other Far Cry game before, but we didn't have the time or the budget. Oh, and by the way, this game is not for you, so just don't buy it, bro. That was his words to me on Twitter.
Wow.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Big old middle finger.
If it's a Twitter egg account, I could see it working, but how in here?
It wasn't. I think I was having I didn't abuse him. I didn't harass him. I just took him to task on it and be like, look, okay, I understand that you wanted to cut this or couldn't make it.
Safe space, bro.
You couldn't make it in the you couldn't make it. I don't understand it. It's like, okay, cool. I'm glad you couldn't make it in the final release of Far Cry 4. I get that. I'm not a developer. I'm not Ubisoft. I could not make decisions on this, but here's what really pissed me off and rubbed me the wrong way about it. They waited all the way until launch after people begged and begged and begged for information about it because people are buying this game specifically for this. It had a pretty large community back in the day, back in the Far Cry Instincts Predator days, back in the Far Cry 2 days. Far Cry 2 was bumping for like 2 years on the multiplayer community right after the game launched. There was never any charge for any DLC. It was what it was. Now Far Cry 2 kind of played like crap. I mean, the controls were unwieldy. But the map editor and the relationship, it's almost like the Little Big Planet of first-person shooters in a way. And the fact that they did that made people really sore. So cue Far Cry 5 again. And now Ubisoft has a completely different model on how they're handling their business, seemingly. They're going in the games for service model. So if you look at The Division and Rainbow Six Siege and things like that, they're good games. I mean, people bitched about the games as a service thing for a while, which has some legitimacy, I agree, to a point, but when you're doing it right, especially with Siege, and with Far Cry potentially heading that direction, we could have a winner here.
Well, hold on a second. Why, what makes anybody think that Far Cry 5 is going to move in that direction?
There was I should have probably said that. They had their earnings call. And I can pull it up here. Their earnings call.
Okay.
Their
that sounded
earnings
like conjecture. Until you
No.
okay,
It's not conjecture.
I got a reason. I got a reason for thinking it.
The name of their
legacy talking shit, dreaming up imaginary things, eating psilocybin. Telling you.
So the name of their earnings call that they just had, this is where they actually unveiled Far Cry 5.
Okay.
Was multiplayer, competitive, co-op, open worlds, live operations. And on every single slide that they presented, this was the header. And I have pictures of it here. And this is where they're just sort of documenting to their shareholders and whoever else was on the call, just kind of where they're going. Like, say, for instance, Rainbow Six Siege has esports views up 500%. A lot of people were watching Siege. So when you talk about that, esports ecosystem, it's doing it. So I'm apprehensive to be even a little bit hyped. If you want to talk about, America's twisted Christian crazy people and a single player for Far Cry, I'm all on board for that. Just don't kill the bad guy too early, okay? But multiplayer is where a lot of people, and this is weird, a lot of people will tell you, if you ask them, why do you play Far Cry? If you like Far Cry, well, I like the single player. But there's a multiplayer community that exists that have been largely ignored since Far Cry 2. So here's hoping that they don't wait all the way until launch, at least for Far Cry Primal, literally the day that it was announced on the Far Cry forums. They said, when they were asked, okay, yep, there's no map editor, there's no multiplayer. Cool. I can either buy or not buy the game. Excellent.
Well, in the direction that Far Cry has been going, they've leaned towards narrative single-player campaigns. So it is safe to assume, but assuming makes asses out of you and me.
Mm-hmm.
But it is safe to assume that it's feasible that they could just go with this cult like Jim Jones, Heaven's Gate cult thing that you got to go invade and kill. But then what I wanted to talk to you about was rumors aside, we have to look at the game mechanically and functionally. What is it going to do? Well, we've seen two sides of what Far Cry can do, right? At least in the latest iterations of where they've gone in direction. You've got towers and you have a base.
So the Ubisoft pedigree.
Yeah, and here's my question. How does cult, because that's a radical, separated, isolated movement for the most part. They confined to like a compound or a center or a location of some type. How does, the base model might work, but do you got to take out surrounding cultist tower places to weaken the thing? Maybe, I don't know.
If we
reveal more of the map.
If we look at,
hope not.
The premise actually reminds me somewhat of a film called The Sacrament. Have you seen that?
No. Should I watch it?
Yes. There's I believe it's a film crew goes out to this Jim Jonas like Jim Jones like cult compound.
It sounds familiar.
It's out in the middle of nowhere, and I think one of them accidentally offends the leader of the cult and everything.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
They act like everything's cool, then everything just slowly goes to shit. And this whole premise I read here on this Reddit post reminds me a lot of it. Like,
or not even
they all
just
kind of
that. What's
brainwashed
that
and such.
one? What's that one Kevin Smith movie? Red State.
Oh, Red State was so good.
That's exactly what it reminds me of. Just a bunch of
Yeah.
weird militia Christians holed up in a church. And the fires of God, I hear it. I hear the trumpet sound.
Outlast 2 is basically just plunged in a whole bunch of religion and such.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure
I
you've played it
haven't completely played that yet. I'm about an hour in, but
Oh yeah.
I'm loving it. It's definitely got that sort of dark, wacko Christian sort of cultist thing that no matter what your religion, it is kind of a scary. It can have a scary side for sure.
Oh yeah.
So I think once we know about Far Cry 4, we're going to find out, or Far Cry 5, we're going to find out a lot about Far Cry 5, probably at E3. They'll probably show it there. I don't see why they would waste the stage space that they could have on their show. But until then, I'm holding with bated breath. Thanks for stopping by and hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe for further content and more Far Cry stuff. Also, we're on SoundCloud too for those of you that like to ride on planes and stuff. Thanks for coming by.